Hi. I was debating whether or not I was going to make a video about this, but I guess I have to. I'm looking at all the social media, and it's just atrocious. In the United States, at the time of this recording, we had a terrible mass murder over the weekend in Orlando, Florida, where a gunman went into a nightclub and killed 50 people, wounded another 50 others. All he had was a rifle and a pistol, and he was confronted outside by an off-duty police officer who heroically gave his life trying to protect all those people, but unfortunately he was able to get the officer first. And once he got inside, those poor people were defenseless. And he killed a lot of them. For no other reason than it was an LGBT nightclub. That's it. Just for existing. Yeah, it's... I have friends that know people that were there, that are grieving now. And I have a friend that has a daughter that could have been there that night if she had been there in town. Yeah, it's just... for no reason other than existing. But I think the worst part is looking at social media and seeing people cheer this event. Religious psychopaths that hate LGBT people, because their religion says that they should hate them, and saying how good it is that those people were killed. These are fellow Americans, mind you, that they're cheering the deaths of. So, if you're some religious fruitcake, if you're celebrating the deaths of your fellow Americans, I'm here to tell you something. You are a traitor. And everything that you put on social media in support of the murder of fellow Americans should officially brand you as a traitor to everybody. I really don't care what color these people were. I don't care what orientation they were. They were Americans. And the sad thing was the shooter was an American himself, but he identified with ISIS. He went crazy or something, and decided that this is obviously not something ISIS planned. It's just inspired by ISIS. Instead of saying, look, this is terrible that this mentally ill person, whatever, who was under investigation, mind you, by the FBI. So I'm guessing right now somebody is getting a bit of a talking to and saying, maybe we might want to re-examine how we investigate people, because the whole point of background checks and other stuff is specifically to catch people like this and keep them from legally purchasing weapons, because the weapons he had were legally purchased. So of course that rallies the cry for the gun grabbers who are decrying, oh, we need to rip up the Constitution. The Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which is part of the Bill of Rights, which has existed since the founding of the country, guarantees everybody the right to bear arms in the United States. But there are people that want to foolishly tear that up. They want to shred the Constitution. And they seize on any one of these events to decry. Now, they're really silent whenever somebody who is armed legally, who prevents one of these massacres, you never hear a peep out of them. There have been a couple where, someone was inspired by such and such, or they wanted media fame and they went to go hurt a lot of people, and they got caught, or they got killed in the commission of it before they were able to carry out the act. Those gun grabbers, they'll never talk about those. They're really quiet about that stuff. But boy, did they scream like stuck pigs whenever one of these events happens and say, see, it's because of the guns. It's because of the guns. I don't see this as a problem of, one nutbag with a gun. I see it as 103 people without them. That off-duty officer was the only one who was armed, and sadly, the bad guy got the drop on him. I mean, he tried. He tried to save those people. He died a hero. But if somebody else had been armed, maybe this would have been different. We would have a lot less casualties. The number would be much smaller than it is. Now, I've had some people who've already, come to me and they were very angry that I'd say that and say, the answer is not more guns. Well, you know what? I can think of examples where it was. Garland, Texas. I'll provide a link. Recently, again, ISIS-inspired sympathizers who were American-born saw a gathering of people in Texas and decided, this is already bad, right? And you're like, I identify with ISIS. Let me go down to Texas and do a mass shooting. You can imagine how that worked out. They were shot dead in the parking lot. They never even made it inside to take a shot at anybody, you know. Well, Texas, it, when you decided that you wanted your mass shooting there, you've already committed suicide. It's not like those gun grabber states, where they want to make sure everybody's disarmed. Nope. Texas is like the exact opposite. Might as well be the home of the Second Amendment. So, yeah, in Texas's case, guns were the answer and always have been. And people are very polite there because they're all likely armed. Strange how that works out. And yet, everybody in Texas is not dead, as some of the alarmists would tell you. Well, if everybody had guns and started shooting, we'd all be dead. And they love to scream and whatnot. Consider, if you were in that club that night, you're there with somebody that you care about or someone that you love, and someone comes in there to hurt you. Wouldn't you like to be able to fight back? I know I would. Heck, granted, the club is supposed to be a gun-free zone, but to be honest, I think I'd rather face a judge and a jury for discharging a weapon in city limits than, as a living person, than be another one of the body count that you hear about on the news. Gun-free zones really are death zones. And we've seen many examples where, people who were legally entitled to carry weapons set them aside and observe the, no guns policy for this place, and left their gun inside, and as a result, happened to be there when a massacre happened and couldn't shoot back because they had obeyed the law. I mean, we have laws against murder too. This is something the gun grabbers like to forget about. They're like, well, if we just pass more laws, there are laws against murder. That certainly was not a deterrent to the gunman. He was there to hurt people. And yes, the only way to stop them is to fight back. If you're terrified of guns, if you want to live in a society where everyone's guaranteed to be disarmed, what you're fantasizing about is a police state. And those do exist. I mean, you can enjoy the paradise that is North Korea right now. You can emigrate there. They will take you with open arms. They'll never let you leave. But you can be guaranteed that you'll never own a gun, and neither will your neighbors. Only the government will have them. You can have that right now. China too. If that's really the lifestyle you'll crave, if you think that makes you safer, go. They're waiting for you. But for the people that want to espouse hate against the Bill of Rights, to be honest, every time I see a politician on TV, if their issue is cutting up any part of the Bill of Rights, they're already a non sequitur for me. The person is obviously not qualified to lead anybody if they hate any part of the Constitution. I mean, part of their oath, supposedly, is to support and defend the Constitution, not tear it up. And that's the same oath, by the way, that the entire armed forces of the United States takes. So, for those that are, screaming about how they want to tear the Constitution up, surprise, you're enemies of the United States. Yeah, it's a hotbed of issues, so religious nutbags celebrating, the death of fellow Americans, the gun grabbers that want to take this opportunity to use the tragedy to their advantage, those poor people who just want to live in peace. It's been said, and it's still true, that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Unfortunately, that means being ready to defend yourself from violence such as this. I mean, the people that were, telling me about how guns are not the answer and everything. Well, okay. And I told them, I said, if you really believe that, especially in these situations where all those people died because they couldn't defend themselves, you might as well put your affairs in order right now and be ready to lay down and die when told to do so, because you already decided that you don't want to fight back. Well, that's great. Nonviolence sounds great, but that's that's natural selection. You have to be. If you're not willing to fight back, then you just won't carry on. Someone else will carry on in your place.